Well, hey, hello and welcome aboard 757 Spy Flight. Recognize the airport? Maybe not from this angle. Let's look up here a little bit. Long concourses, parallel runways. Welcome to Raleigh, Durham International Airport. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for coming in. And there's our airplane for today. The PMDG 737. Hello, my name is Dave. I do the Spy Flight over on Twitch. And every Monday I like to come on over to YouTube and do what I call a complete flight. Sometimes it's a first flight, sometimes it's a cold and dark. Today, one of the things is I've been needing to learn how to properly load the cargo on this airplane. And also, since the beginning of the Spy Flight on Twitch 5 years ago, I've been using the old style United Airlines flight plan. And I'm switching over to the LIDO style, so this is something that's going to be a little bit new for me. So let's hop in the airplane, and this is the airplane that we're going to be flying today, the PMDG 737. This is the Model 700. PMDG has plans to make a 600 and an 800, and I think maybe even a 900. I'm not 100% sure. I think the 600 is going to be the next Boeing 737 that they're going to put out. And I've got to tell you, this is an amazing airplane. We really do have some amazing airplanes that are coming out for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've got, first of all, the simulator itself, which is incredible scenery, and now we've got really complete, well done, complex airplanes to go exploring the world in. So what are we doing today? Well, today's flight plan says United Airlines. Boy, that's kind of messed up, isn't it? It's not a special flight. I thought I fixed all that. Well, let's see if I can fix it right here. So where is, that is going to be this one. How did that get over there? Okay, so let me go down here and let's go. I thought I hit save on that one. See what happens when I don't hit save and my graphics are all messed up? Hey, at least I got hot coffee, so we're good. We're doing United Airlines Flight 2431. This is a real-world flight in a Boeing 737-700. It goes from Raleigh, Durham to Chicago O'Hare. Add-ons that I'm going to use for today's flight: Navigraph charts and data. I'm also using Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief, and METAR TAF is what I'm using for the weather. And as far as add-ons, that's it. I do have a payware airport for O'Hare. I think this might have been a freeware update over at flightsim.to for the actual airplane. So what are we doing? This is a complex plane. A lot of the buttons work, and you have to know a little bit about how these airplanes work. Today we're going to focus a little bit on how to properly load passengers and cargo. Now there's two ways to do it. You could just slam the numbers in and go and fly, or you can load them up, and we're going to actually do that. We're also going to do a new flight plan format. I'm switching over to the LIDO style of flight plans here. As I always like to say with these kinds of videos, it's not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is just what I've found works for me. And as the sim gets more and more complex, finding things that work for you is going to be important. And there's so many rabbit holes that you get to jump into. So what should you do? If you've got the time, I think you should stop the video, go load up your flight simulator at Raleigh, Durham, and fly along with me. The other thing is to pause and restart the videos, and then do your own hometown flights. I think that flying out of your hometown airport is a really good idea. If you can possibly do that, because you see the landmarks that you're familiar with, and that just kind of helps, make it a little more your flight and your own world. And enough of that. Let's go on over and hop into the airplane. This is a very cold and dark airplane. I've done absolutely nothing. My startup state for these airplanes is really pretty simple here. The startup state is basically cold and dark. I have chocks in place, as you can see, and I also have the ground power cart ready to go. So there's the external view. We don't even have a jetway out. Now, normally what happens in the real world is the pilots are going to do some of the things that I'm doing right now in the pilot's lounge, but we need to kind of crawl into the airplane and start punching some buttons. We need to be able to do some stuff here in the FMS. And all we're going to do is go to FS Actions, and we're going to go to ground services. Now you can see we have ground power in place and the chocks are set, which means we can now go and call ourselves a jetway. And then as we go out, you can see here comes the jetway because, you know, we got to have the jetway to get in the airplane. Either that or you could lower some stairs, but we're at Raleigh, Durham, and Raleigh, Durham has jetways. So we're going to get a jetway out here. And that goes there. Now let's come back down here, return, and go and hit the doors, and just open the L1. L1, so doors on airplanes. This is the R2, right side airplane, door number 2. So this would be right side number 1. L1 is over here, and is the door open? Sure is. Here's our view outside the cockpit. There's the bathroom, and there's the passenger cabin. So we have a jetway, and the door's open. So we'll come on back here, and all we need to do is open the door. Now from here, this is good for the moment. So we'll just leave this alone and start taking a look at some of the stuff the real pilots do. And the first thing they're going to look at is the flight plan. This is it. This is the LIDO style, page 1. And this gives you a little bit of information like your flight number. And it looks like I filed this under United 441 instead of 2431. 441 is the standard flight number that I use over on VATSIM. Our cost index is going to be over here. It's 35. Our departure time is 22:35 Zulu. So that's good to know. We've also got fuel. The gate fuel that we're going to need here is going to be 13,893 pounds of fuel. So there's just some basics for you right there. Flight level 30 is our altitude today. And our alternate is KMCI Airport. Okay, here's our official schedule. Airlines like to have schedules. That's what it's all about. And then one of the big reasons that I shifted to LIDO is because this actually gives me the passenger count. How many passengers do we put aboard? The other format just gave me a 0 fuel weight. And most of the airplanes that are coming out, they want a passenger number. Also gives me cargo. And so it's nice to know what the cargo is going to be too. And there you go. Those are just the basic things that I need to start doing stuff. If we go and look up here just a little bit, there is our flight plan route. So this is not correct. This is yesterday's flight. What the heck? I did this. I swear I did this. I planned ahead. I really did this morning. I even saved it. Let's go to flight, and we need to go and export flight plan. Okay, so come over here to export, sim brief. It's going to launch a browser. I swear I did this. JU. Okay, there we go. RDU to ORD. This looks better. So let's go over here and save it as my active plan on the desktop. Clearly, I didn't have as much coffee. I'm still getting my act together today. Okay, let's go and update that, and let's look at the active. Okay, RDU to ORD. Okay, so this looks a little bit better. And, okay, there's our flight plan. Yeah, that was yesterday's. Okay, clearly, I've got trouble here today. Hopefully we can make this work. I'm going to go ahead and keep recording the video even though there's clearly some problems here today because it shows that you can recover from problems when you're flying in airplanes. So Raleigh, Durham, 23 left, Shepherd departure. We've got a couple of spots, Doogie, Haven, Bonnet, and then the VEEC-5 arrival into O'Hare's 27 Center. By the way, these are the real runways that the real airports are using because we got real weather cranked in. If you're doing this, this is YouTube, so this is recorded. There's a chance that your runways might be a little bit different. So are my passenger numbers different? Oh, heck yeah. So the passenger numbers are different. It's 85 and 5.4 cargo. So, boy, yeah, I did have the old flight plan in there. Great. So let's go ahead and start putting some numbers in. So to do this, we're going to come down to FS Actions. We haven't even turned on the airplane. So, you know, we got to, PMDG wants to make a way to control all of this externally before we actually start controlling getting in the airplane. That's a little bit of immersion that they might do. Create a pilot's office. I don't know. That's they're listening to this, listening to me say this and saying, "Are you crazy? You're nuts." Let's go to ground services. So we have a jetway in place. The door's open. Page 2. This is our fuel. How much fuel do we need? Well, according to my new style of flight plan, we come up here and the fuel is 17,234, 234 pounds. So 17234. Sometimes I forget a number. So put that in for the target. And now we're going to request a fuel truck. Let's get that going right here and right now. Okay, let's go ahead and do passengers. For our passengers today, we need, it's 85, right? I'm going to look at the number. Yes, 85 passengers. Now, this says that there's 115 passengers aboard. So I guess we need to deplane these people first. I don't know. So it started with passengers in there. Maybe I've got something set up wrong. That number should be 0. So are passengers deplaning? Yeah, they are. Okay. And here's another problem. So here is our baggage handling. So baggage, cargo is 5.4. That's too much math right now. 5.4 divided by 2 equals 2.7. So 2.7. So that's basically 2,700. And that goes in there. And then 2,700 here. Now, I may need to change my default settings, and I may need to empty out all the baggage first before I go and do those sorts of things. But, because, yeah, we shouldn't have passengers aboard. It should be 0, so maybe I need to change my default settings. I don't know. Anyhow, so now we've got our basic loading done. Now, we're still not loaded. And, in fact, if you look outside, you can see our fuel truck has arrived. They've got one of the hoses is in the ground, so that's a place where they can go and plug in to get fuel, so they don't drive a big old tanker out there. And then there's the hose going up to the airplane. If we kind of go over here, we can actually look and see some of the detail on this. So come over here, use the drone camera, make it so you're moving hardly at all. Okay, so let's try this and see if we can see something. So come on down here, and let's go under the wing and see what they modeled. A lot of these airplanes have a lot of this stuff being modeled these days. Look up. Oh, look at that. They modeled all of this. So they modeled where you hook it in. They modeled some of the controls. Yeah, the fuelers actually have some controls too. And so there's that's how you put gas in a Boeing 737. See, we could also walk around and do probably even a walk around. I'm not going to make you do the whole thing. Let's see. Yeah, look at this. We can walk around. Real pilots are going to check the brakes. So brake pads, they're also going to check the tires, make sure that they're good. Look up for hydraulic fluid that might be leaking out. So that's a good thing to check out too. You'd also check the engine. So it looks like visually on the outside of the airplane, there is so much that you can go and do. I imagine that also if you have VR, walking around this airplane is probably a pretty amazing experience. So fuel is coming aboard the airplane. Very cool. We've got the flight planning done. The next thing that the pilots are going to do is they're going to go and they're going to assemble what I call the stack of charts. And so if you're using Navigraph, my stack of charts is already set here. So here are parking gates. We are at D17. The real flight this morning took off from D19. So D17, and they're taking off on runway 23. They're landing on 23 right and taking off on 23 left. So then we're going to do the Shepherd departure. So after takeoff, you're going to do vectors to Cater, I guess. And then Willoff and Shepherd, and out we go. And there's our departure. Okay, the pilots also sit in the pilot, and they talk through this so that everybody knows exactly what's going on. Coming on in here, we're going to go via Bonnet. There's Veek, there's Boone. Now, after this, if we're landing west, after Clouseau, expect vectors to final after Clouseau. So after Clouseau, if Cato, Pick, Vulcan, and all these show up in there, that's not what we're going to do, because right now Chicago landing to the west, and I think they're going to bring us in probably on runway 27 center. So there's 27 center, the ILS. After landing on runway 27 center, chances are we'll get off on Echo 1, probably going back here to Romeo. Romeo crosses 27 left, and then we into the gate area. So Romeo around here, probably to Alpha 6. And the real flight is parking at O'Hare's Gate, Charlie 29. So you look over here, and Charlie 29 is right over here. So at the end of the midfield concourse out here. So now we have gone, and like the real pilots, we just briefed our flight. And we did that with the charts and the flight plan. The real pilots are also going to go through all of the NOTAMs. If you've noticed, the flight plan file here is 57 pages. So there are buckets of NOTAMs, all of these things that you've got to read if you're going to be a real pilot. I'm not going to read it to you. The one thing that I will do is we're going to take a look at significant weather for flight level 250. And we're going up to flight level 370. So there's 250. So there's just basic significant weather. There's thunderstorms along the East Coast. We've got a frontal boundary up to the north. I think it's going to be a beautiful day to fly a simulated airplane. Absolutely wonderful. And that looks good. So let's go ahead and move this over here. And that is good to go. So there's our flight plan. Let me move that up there. And let's go and see how things are going with fuel. So we got to get out of this thing over here. I don't have a hotkey set up yet for my to get out of showcase. So now we can get back in the cockpit and let's see how we're doing with fuel. All right, passengers are technically loaded. So, and fuel is, so it's plugged up. It was waiting for us to hit start. So let's get the fuel started. And fueling is going on. Pilots can come aboard the airplane. Let's go ahead and start flipping some buttons on. Although maybe they would turn on a few things before they call fuel. So if we blow up, it's not my fault. I'm just a sim pilot. Let's do ground power. There comes ground power. It's already got the navigation lights on. So that's already good. And in fact, at this point in time, I usually don't do anything up here except maybe we'll turn on the electric hydraulic pumps so that things start moving around if we need to. If it's a cold morning, we could also turn on the window heaters now and start making the airplane pleasant for passengers. Okay, so at this point in time, you see that the FMCs have moved around a little bit. I'm going to go to FS Actions over on the co-pilot side, and we're going to go to the FMC on my side. Check your navigation data. Our nav data is good until July 14th. So we can do position in net, and all of this is blank. So we'll look up here, and we got to look up to the top here. And the top, this is where we're going to go and do the IRSs, nav, and nav. If you want to monitor this progress, you can go and switch this thing over to heading and status, and then turn up the brightness. And as these things start to come alive, there's going to be a 9. And then there's going to be an 8 and a 7. The number goes down. That's the alignment progress. If those numbers are going down, chances are you are properly aligning. And so that's a good thing to do. Airplanes coming to life here. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next page here on position reference and wait for GPS to show up. While all of this is going on, we can go over here to ground services again. And let's go and see how fueling is going. Fuel's going pretty good. So right now, it's gone and it's loaded 25,000 pounds of fuel. The target I wanted was 17, but it's maybe this is the maximum. I don't know if I did this wrong or not, but the fuel number is slightly off. So we could go ahead and release the truck. I don't think I can start fueling or anything because that's now. So I guess we can go and release this. And so that'll get rid of the truck. Anyhow, like I said, that doesn't seem to be right to me. So maybe I've done something wrong. I'm not sure. While the fuel truck is detaching itself, let's go over here, and we have 85 passengers aboard. And as far as cargo, what we can do is we can go and get loaders. And we could also get baggage carts. And so if we go outside, we can see over here, the airplane's starting to make some noise too. There's a baggage loader coming up, and that's going to go in and attach itself. It'll even open the doors for us. So we can go and load the bags, and then the gas truck's going to go away. And I don't have to pay the gas bill because this is simulated. So, my credit card remains safely away from that. While we were yammering around about all these things, you can see GPS has finally figured out our latitude and longitude. They're relatively close to each other. I usually take the one from the left side, put it in the scratch pad, previous page, and then go over here to IRS. Set the IRS position, and we're done. Go to the routing. Our route for today is KRDU. Raleigh, Durham. We are going to KORD, home of Lou Malnati's Pizza, Spy Flight favorite pizza. We are flying as United Airlines, flight 2431, 2431. So that goes into flight number. And we already know, because we've done our homework, that we're going to be departing off 23 left. So 23 left is our departure runway. So we could pop that in there. Now let's go to page 2. And this is where we go and we put in our flight plan. And we come over here and look at this. And let's see. Look down here. There's our flight plan. So Shepherd, Doogie, the Q63 airway to Haven, Bonnet, and then arrival into Chicago. So let's go and do our first one, which is SHPRD. So SHPRD. Shepherd. After Shepherd, we're going to Doogie, D-O-O-G-E, or Doog, I'm not, D-O-O-G-E. And this one goes over here. So if it's a waypoint, it goes on this side. Now, after that, we're going to be on an airway, and it's the Q63. So Q63 airway. And we're going to exit that airway at Haven, H-E-V-A-N. H-E-V-A-N. After Haven or Heaven, it's direct to Bonnet, B-O-N-N-T. B-O-N-N-T. By the way, I'm not saying the name and then spelling it out to be insulting to you or anything. I'm saying B-O-N-N-T as I'm typing, so I keep it straight up here in my crazy little mind, okay? That's why it is that I'm doing those sorts of things. It really helps if you actually say these things. You know, now people in your family are going to, oh, talking to himself to the airplane again. Don't worry about it. I don't. But then I live alone, so. Okay. And yes, my sense of humor is already off the rails here. We can go ahead and we can start loading. So we're doing our loading right now. So that's good. Now that we've done this, we can go and do departure and arrival. Our departure. Now the airplane is already, our 23 left is selected. You need to make it, you need to click it one more time, even if you put it in there. And then we need to do the Shepherd departure, Shepherd 4, no transition. So there we go. No transition out of that. And select, go back to the index page. Arrival. We think we're going to come in on Chicago's 27 Center, ILS 27 Center. We're doing VEEC arrival, VEEC 5. Via Bonnet, and it says via Vogler. I don't think we need to do the Vogler transition. Okay, so all of those are set. We didn't get an execute on those. Wonder if I did something wrong. Let's go to legs and see if we got. So vectors to cater. And so the star has shown up. There's Heaven, there's Bonnet, there's Clouseau. After Clouseau, there's Cato, Pink, Monks. So all of this is going to be gone. And then vectors to the runway. And there's our runway. So we don't need most of those in there. Now, I think that probably that shouldn't show up. But, so I don't know. After Cato, no, after Clouseau, it's, we can get rid of Cato. So let's see what happens if we delete Cato. And then after that, let's see if we can just go and do the vectors. Let's do direct Jimbo. After Cato, direct Jimbo, and activate and execute that. And the reason I'm doing that is that gives me a better descent. Better descent. Okay, I think we have a flight plan, and I think that this will work. I think. But it could all go crazy really fast. Well, all of the, let's let the computers take a break here, and let's go and do flip some switches. Yaw dampers can go on. So all that looks good. Let's also do the aft left fuel and turn that on. And we're also going to go with that. When the light goes out, we can go and start the APU. That's good. We're already warming up the windshield. We've already got the hydraulic pumps on. Our final cruise is flight level 370. So 37,000 feet for final cruise. So 37,000. Landing altitude. We'll go to the charts page here. And over here, we'll go to the airport chart. And up at the upper left-hand corner, it says 680 feet. So let's dial this. There's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 650. I'm going to go closer to 700 because that's the closer number. So that takes care of that. Let's also go ahead. I like to just turn a little bit of the panel backlighting on. In Airbus, they call that integrated lighting. I generally like to have the backlighting. It just makes it easier to see stuff on the panel. It just makes the labels on the panel pop up a little bit more, and that's kind of nice. And then here's the one for the pedestal. And so we do this. And I'm usually just turning them up about halfway during the day. Squawk for today's flight, let's make it 2,000. We're not on VATSIM, so we'll just put in 2,000. And that's good. If we also wanted to, if we were on VATSIM, we could go and do 122.8. And that's how it is that we would announce our intentions unless there was ATC, and then we would jump through the ATC hoops. And the airplane's slowly coming to life here. Okay, it looks like the baggage is done. So let's go ahead and release the carts. And we're also going to release the loaders. And so now these guys are going to drive away. The loaders are going to drive away. They'll even close the baggage bay doors for us. You saw those just close? So yes, you can do some major airplane geeky stuff here. Let's go back over here. And jetway, passengers are 85. I think that's good for the moment. So all of that is good. We don't need maintenance or anything like that. And so everything is good for the moment. Up here, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and do the mode control panel. So departing out of Raleigh, Durham, we are on 23 left. So generally that means go back to your chart, 23 left. The departure heading is 234 degrees. So let's do our heading, 234 degrees. So runway heading off the runway, 234. Now, if you're on VATSIM and you get your clearance, ATC will say climb via the SID. What they mean is go to the actual departure, look at the SID, and look for something like this, the top altitude. That is you are cleared to 6,000 feet. Now, they might tell you, give you an altitude, at which point they may give you another altitude because, you know, maybe there's alligators at 6,000 feet and they want you to go to 7,000 feet. Anyway, so they want you to go and look at the chart, just like the real world pilots are going to go and look at the chart and find out what that cleared altitude is. So that's good to go there too. Let's go ahead and we can go and start finishing up the FMS. And so there is our route. Let's go to performance. We know that we are going to be going to a final cruise of 370. 370. That's good. Our zero fuel weight. Airplane is loaded, and usually that number is going to be something different. Now, unlike the Airbus, we don't get a load sheet out of this, but I'll bet when PMDG is done with the electronic flight bag that they're working on, I bet we're going to get something resembling a load sheet. Until then, all you need to do is click ZFW, and it does your math based on the weight of your fuel. It also does the math based on your passengers and bags and cargo and stuff, and there's your zero fuel weight. So that's how you get that. Reserves, that's at the bottom of the flight plan here. And what you want is final reserve plus alternate, so that should be 5.9. 5,900 should be in the tanks unless you have to hold or divert or go to the bathroom. Cost index, that is up here. Cost index today is 35. So 35, 3.5, there we go. Okay, and now it says you can execute this. There's one more thing that I want to put in here, and cruise winds. And on the LIDO style of flight plan, it gives you average winds, which is 272 at 52 knots. 272 at 52 knots. So that goes over here in cruise winds. And now we're good, so let's execute that. N1 limits, so you know, derated takeoff, you can do a full power takeoff and climb. Let's go ahead and I've been right now derating to 1 and 1. So that's how I'm saving fuel and, you know, being cool. So that's how I'm doing those there. There are other ways to do it. I just haven't jumped into the manual and learned it yet. Takeoff. So the rule of thumb that I've gotten is if your runway for departure is longer than 7,000 feet, 7,500 feet, the airplane likes to have flaps 1 for takeoff. If it's less than 7,000 feet, I think it's flaps 5. But there you go. Center of gravity. So there's probably going to be, when we get load sheets, a center of gravity. For now, just click it. It's going to give you do the math and just plug it in. That's all you got to do. And now go and do your suggested speeds for takeoff. And there we go. So V1's 129, 131, and 138. And all of those are good. So we're getting pretty close to start needing a checklist. And that's the thing. This is a real-world Boeing checklist for 737. And I'm going to suggest as the airplanes get more and more complex, these are good things to start using. Okay, so I just cleared that. Let's look up here. The APU generator is available. So we're going to go and punch that generator in and disconnect ground power. Let's see, we also should have turned on the APU's bleed. And let's also turn on some pack for a few minutes here. Make the passengers comfy in the airplanes. We're also going to go ahead and turn on seatbelts. And so we got that. And I think it's time to close the doors. So let's go return. Doors. Close the main door. And come out here, and I missed the button, so there's the main door closing. So doors closing, return, ground services. We're going to go ahead and release the ground power cart. And that, usually when you release ground power with the door closed, that's going to retract your jetway for you. So the jetway is now retracting. Let's go ahead and do the pre-flight checklist. And we start off with oxygen. There's the oxygen. Hey, the oxygen works. Navigation, instrument, and trans switches are all normal. Yaw dampers are on. Emergency exit lights are armed. There we go. Window heat is on. Pressurization mode selector is set to auto. Flight instruments. Heading and altitude are set. GPS is set to nav. Parking brake is not on. We have chocks in place. Parking brake is on. Engine start levers are set to cutoff. And there we go. There is the pre-flight checklist. Everything else is looking good here. Let's go down here. One of the things that I haven't done is the V2 speed. So V2 plus 10 is 148. I'm going to have that be my target speed off the runway. 148. There we go. So, shall we do pushback and stuff? It's time to go. So we're going to go down here. All of this is clear. We're going to go to pushback. And for us, we're going to go and let's do an L. So we're going to push straight back, and we want the nose to the left. So we're going to do what's called a standard L, and we want to turn the nose to the left. Let's go and connect the tug. And we should have a tug connected. It does look a little funky compared with the other tug that automatically shows up from Microsoft. So but we got the tug ready to go. Let's do before start checklist. Flight deck door is closed. Fuel is 25.4. That's a little bit much, so I don't think that we need that much fuel, but that's what we got. And I need to figure out what I did wrong with my fuel. Passenger signs are on. Windows are locked. Mode control panel. The speed, heading, and altitude are set. Takeoff speeds are computed and in the flight management computer. The CDU pre-flight is done. Rudder and aileron trim is set and 0. Taxi and takeoff briefing is done. Anti-collision lights are going to go on. We're going to let the cabin crew know that we're going to move the airplane about. And we're good to go with that. Before start checks are good. I think it's time to go. So let's see. Let's go over here. And once you select the tug and you've selected what you want for your pushback, it should pull the chocks on the airplane. And if we look down here, you can see the chocks are clear. So the airplane's ready for push and start. Shall we go ahead and do that thing? So come on down here and let's start the push.
Cockpit to ground. Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start. They want the tail to our right. Copy that. Ready for push, tail right. Release brake, please.
Okay, important safety tip here. If you've got a throttle and a side stick, like Thrustmaster, like the Airbus thing, you know it's got a brake switch? Okay, I may have a binding set up wrong. Make sure your brake lever on your Thrustmaster is turned off. Otherwise, the airplane stands on its tail and scoots back on the pushback, and it's very embarrassing. All the other airplanes are going to laugh at you. So make sure that you've got, that any hardware you've got, any hardware things, all of those are clear. That's an important safety tip. And again, maybe I've got an extra binding that I haven't set up. Setting up control bindings is still a little dodgy in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit easier going on us pilots. It would also be nice if they would someday have hardware configurations set that follow airplanes. That way my hardware configuration for the 737, when I load up 737, is there. I don't have to switch it. And if I'm flying the Airbus, it switches it to Airbus mode. That would be super duper nice. Shall we start an engine? Let's go ahead and we're going to turn on our fuel pumps. We've also got some fuel in the center tank today, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and do packs off. And shall we start engine number 2, ground start. And look down here, did we have N2? N2 starts to rise, that's good news. And as we look out here, they're spinning our airplane around very nicely. We're looking for 25%, 18, 19, 23, 4, and 5. Fuel. And then we can come back here. And if I shut up, you can hear the engine starting. I use earbuds, and so this ear on the right side, I hear the engine starting. This ear, not as much. So they even set up right and left on this, which I think is really pretty cool. Okay, we're done with the push. They probably told us to do parking brakes. Parking brakes are on.
Brake set.
And we got a good start on engine number 2. Let's go up here and start engine number 1. Ground start. And N2.
Steering pin is disconnected. Watch for the salute and release from guidance on your left. Have a good flight.
Okay, so salute and release from guidance. That's kind of an important thing to real-world airline pilots. They really want to see the tug driver drive out from under the airplane and have the tug driver stand and salute. It's okay. It's not for any other reason though, except that salute indicates that they have done a inspection underneath your airplane, and there's no idiot standing around under there. Somebody didn't leave a hammer. you know, there's not a little bunny rabbit that's hopping through, that your airplane is clear and you can start taxiing around. And the other thing that they're doing is they're also holding up their version of the gear pins, of the nose gear pin, and say, yep, so not only have I inspected your airplane, here's the gear pin, you can steer your airplane now. And so that's why it is that they say, you know, salute and release from guidance is what they're talking about. Okay, and we got 2 good starts on our engines there. So we can do before taxi, and first thing is generators. So generators, there is generator 1 and generator 2. Probe heaters going to go on. Turn those on after everybody gets out from under the airplane so they don't get burned. Apparently the probe heaters get pretty hot. Anti-ice isn't needed. The isolation valve is closed, and we can turn off the APU bleed. We should also turn packs back on. That's nice of us. Let's see, engine starter switches go to continuous for takeoff. Pressurization, packs are on. Flight auto, this is set. Auto throttle. So I actually have a button on my Airbus Thrustmaster throttle, and I pushed it. It's the little auto throttle release buttons, the red buttons on the side of the throttles, and the one on the right is auto throttle, the one on the left is thrust reversers. So let's go and hit the recall button, and everything is out. Auto brakes go to RTO. Engine start levers are idle. Flight controls. Flight controls are checked and set. Ground equipment is clear. Hand signal's been given. Guess what we can do? It's taxi time. So nose light. Cabin notification that we're going to be rolling the airplane around. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and turn off the APU. So push your toe brakes all the way down, and that releases the parking brakes. Release the toe brake, and then go ahead and add a little bit of thrust. No, unless it's a very simple airport, I usually do have this thing set up here and my moving map so that I can clearly see the airport. I really want to see the airport because they're all a little bit different. And out we go. I also really like nose wheel steering. That's a good thing to have. And we're going to go over to taxiway Charlie. Once you get going, you see it took a little bit to get us going there. This thing will do a nice, nearly thrust idle taxi for you. Very nice wing view. And generally I try and put the taxi line here right sort of in the middle of the windshield wiper. And if we look outside the airplane, there's that nose wheel pretty much right on it. Maybe a little bit more there. So that's how we do that. Okay, so we're going to go past the terminal here. Yeah, we're right on that taxi line. As we taxi out, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do flaps. Flaps 1 for takeoff. I also, at this point, this is when I try to remember to do my flight directors. I don't know exactly where to put that in the flow. I'm not 100% sure yet. Important safety tip, if you've got rudder pedals, okay, and you've got a gaming chair that tilts back when you go to put your feet on the rudder pedals, and if you don't lock your chair in at a certain point in time, that is going to cause you to tilt back in a embarrassing way at the worst time possible. Lock your chair in. Yes, I've done it. It was bad. And just a nice little taxi. Here in the gate area, our ground speed is 10 knots. There's the speedometer for driving around. So that's all we got to do. And we are looking for Delta or Charlie. I would guess Delta is what we want. Up, getting a little bit off. Get back over where we belong. There we go. So there's some signs up here. What do they say? says Foxtrot. Is that what that says? It says Alpha and Kilo. That's not what it says on mine. Oops, nope, we don't want that. Slow down a bit, going too fast. I don't see where that is on my chart, and I don't see a delta or a chart. Okay, there is a delta over there, I think. So I'm really not seeing, so there we go. This is going to get this should be the Delta taxiway. Some airports are meticulously marked, some airports are not. And if you're on VATSIM, that can be a problem. Okay, another thing, bridges. Microsoft Flight Simulator has bridge problems. So we're going over 2 bridges. These are bridges over highways. So if you were driving into the airport, you would see these bridges here. So now we are going down a hill. Now we got to taxi up a hill. And there we go. At Dallas Fort Worth yesterday, we did a taxi over a bridge, and we absolutely hit a wall. The only way that I was able to continue taxiing was to slew out of there. Okay, this is sort of a de-icing or holding area, but we're actually going up a pretty big hill too. All right, and then we'll do Juliet, which is this. This is our next available left. And it really kind of helps if you'll look out the window like this. All right, before takeoff checklist, flaps are down, green light, stabilizer not set. Stabilizer trim for takeoff 5.5. Stabilizer set. Before takeoff checklist is done. If we were on VATSIM right now, we would be, and there was no ATC, we would be announcing our intentions. And if you're new to Flight Sim and VATSIM and talking on the radio is a little scary. So this is, when you're doing a flight like this, you know, you're not on VATSIM, if you can start thinking about, okay, what would I be saying? Well, in my case, I would be saying something along the lines of, Raleigh Durham traffic, a United 737 is approaching 23 left and lining up and waiting. Raleigh. And so that's what I would say on the radio if I needed to announce my intentions. And there's our runway. So there is Alpha 7 right there. And it's a big wide area. So this is a place where they could stage multiple airplanes for takeoff. Once I announce that I'm taking to a runway, that's my cue to go and turn on the strobes. Strobes going on. That's when I want to be a little bit more of an attention freak. I'm also going to look at the paint on the ground and make sure it matches the runway we're supposed to be on. And there's our runway. If I'm on VATSIM and there's other people flying around, I will go outside the airplane and I'm just going to look and see, is anybody on approach before I land? Is anybody at the other end of the runway? And if nobody's there, then I'll also do that on VATSIM. I also try to do that on multiplayer. Okay, transponder is currently on transponder. It's time for us to go to TARA. So there's Tara. And let's also get traffic turned on. So we're ready to go there. Vectors off the runway, so we're going to arm heading hold, heading select before we take off. We'll also have VNAV in just a second. If we had a direct connection with our, you know, our flight path, then what we could do is we could have gone and gone right to VNAV, or LNAV, I mean. LNAV, VNAV, they're all the same. But we actually have vectors on the takeoff, so landing lights, final cabin call. I think it's time to go. Throttles up a little bit. Look down, are our engines spooling up? Are they stable? They are stable at about 30% or so. Move your throttles up to the little indicator there.
Airspeed alive.
Hands on the throttles till V1.
80 knots. V1. Rotate. V2.
And landing gear. My landing gear lever doesn't work too well on this one, so okay, looking pretty good there. Let's go ahead and do VNAV. There's VNAV. All right. ATC is probably going to start vectoring us a little bit, so let's go ahead and get AP engaged. And we're going to start a turn over to, at this point, someone might be saying direct to whatever that waypoint is. It's very small. And then climb and maintain 17,000. There we go up to 17,000. Are we direct to cater? Let's go now to the legs. Cater, click it, put it on top, and hit execute. That is a direct to and LNAV. And that'll take care of it. And we can look outside, and it's really nice. And the scenery's awesome. And if you're one of those people who just loves to travel like I am, this is the cool part. Okay, landing gear is off. I missed doing flaps. Let's get flaps up. Flaps going up. Hey, we can watch the leading edge slats go up here. There goes the leading edge slats. Over a little highway. And there we go. And there's 250 knots, climbing 5,000 feet. We have LNAV engaged. We have VNAV engaged. ATC just got on the horn and said climb and maintain 27,000 feet, flight level 270. If we were on VATSIM and it was just us, about now, I would do another call that says, Raleigh Durham traffic, a United 737 is clear of runway 23 left, departing to the west. Raleigh. So you might have heard, so first of all, I said Raleigh Durham, the airport. I did not give my flight number. Did you notice I said a United 737? So let's say there's 3 Uniteds out there, and we're all saying, this is United 441, this is United 2722, and this is United whatever. Okay, well, which one is that? Well, let's say that, you know, there's a Airbus and a 737 and a 757. Well, gee, if you say a United 757, that becomes pretty easy for other traffic to say, oh, it's that Yahoo over there. And so that's why it is that I've stopped saying my flight number and start saying, hey, I'm a United 737. Give them something to look at and understand. 10,000 feet, landing lights. Do that nose light. Another cabin call. So this cabin call is to let the flight crew know we're past 10,000 feet, past sterile cockpit, but it's also 10,000 feet. Remind the passengers to stay in their seats. Seatbelt sign is still on. We're continuing our climb. Final cruise for today is going to be flight level 340. Did I say 34 or 37? Let's go to route and page 1. I said flight level 370. Okay. So ATC called again. 370. I didn't write it down. I'm trying to write fewer things down in my notes and go right to the flight plan, and I unloaded the flight plan, so I should have left the PDF minimized. Whoops. And let's double click that. And there we go. There's the flight plan. And I had it wrong. It's flight level 340. So we're probably going to use a little bit of extra fuel, but because the airplane boarded a bunch of extra fuel, I'm not worried. Of course, the real pilots, they would not be leaving all this stuff to chance. They would have the correct fuel. They would have also verified the final cruise. I haven't had enough coffee yet, so there you go. See, we're going to come up here. I'm going to turn on airports. That way, if we lose an engine, we can see where the nearest airport is and we can land. Okay, so from here, I usually, after this, we're going to go to Menu, FMC, and I usually put the right FMC on the progress page, and I leave this on a climb cruise. So it says we're going to have 16,400 pounds of fuel when we land at Chicago. So we're going to be a little heavy, but that's okay. We're supposed to have 5.9, so we're carrying extra fuel today. We have 594 miles to go, and we should be landing at 1524 Zulu. It is now 1351. So this is about an hour and a half, 2-hour flight. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you sit and listen to me yammer away through the whole flight. After we get to cruise, I'll be going and we'll pause the video. I'll pause the video and tell you, usually what I do is I restart the video about 100 miles from top of descent. So you kind of get to sit back. Usually on the YouTube days, that's usually when I go over to the spy galley and make breakfast. After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds are both on. Packs are both on. Landing gear is up and off. Flaps are up and the lights are out. Anti-skid could go off. After takeoff checklist is done. Time to sit back and drink coffee. 18,000 feet, standard altimeter. My big sacrifice for authenticity in the flight is whenever I can, I like to tie all of my altimeters to the same altimeter instead of having them all set individually. I'm just one person, especially on a VATSIM flight when I've got to be here doing the radios and everything else. That's kind of one of those things that that's some immersion that I'm willing to sacrifice, and I don't think that the immersion police are going to come get me for that. Tools that I use, I really still like Sim Toolkit Pro, works pretty good for me. Another one that you could use is Volanta. Both of them work well. This one is freeware. The developer has made it free for several years now, so I really am trying to stick with this and be supportive. This is also going to give you an estimated time en route, so it's going to be a total of 1 hour and 16 minutes. You should also have that same number at the top of your screen if you're a live streamer or a content creator. This is also where the data at the top of the, well, more of it there. The data at the top of the screen comes from. We also get some weather radar here. I don't know how up to the minute this is. Sometimes it's a little bit late. I don't know. I believe here on the map you could also go and you could include ATC coverage. So if we were on VATSIM, you could turn that on and see if there's anybody doing any ATC. And at this time of the day, I really don't expect anybody doing ATC in the United States. Nope, not flight map. So let's see. No ATC coverage. You could go and do network flights. So if there's people flying around, I guess that would show up. Not many people flying around right now. So this is something you could use. I also suggest there is several ways to monitor traffic on VATSIM. So if we were on VATSIM, I would be using something called SimAware. So this is what's actually going on VATSIM right now. Oh, there actually is some ATC. Look at this. Chicago center's up. Memphis center's up. Generally for this first thing in the morning flight on YouTube, I don't do this. This also has a little bit of weather radar, so I guess we do have some showers and thunderstorms over West Virginia. Right now there's 804 people flying on VATSIM. Passing 24,000 feet. 267 is our current heading. I like to keep the heading up here updated with what the autopilot's doing. In case the autopilot, has a nutty or something like that, you're able to, oh yes, we need to be flying this heading here, because you're going to see the little bug up there for your heading. So that's good. So we're in good cruise mode. Everything's looking good here. Passengers are sipping their morning coffee. And the scenery outside is absolutely amazing. Again, if travel is one of your favorite things and you haven't been able to travel because of, the virus and everything else, or you just haven't been able to go and do that, this is the next best thing. The scenery is that good, and it's getting better. I've noticed some of the airports are getting some very nice enhancements around them, and some of the paywares are getting really, really good. I've noticed some of that popping up around Chicago and Denver. Portland had some nice enhancements. So 25,000 feet, my general standard operating procedure is at 25,000 feet. If there's no chop or anything like that, that's when I'm going to go ahead and do seatbelts to auto. And I'm also going to go starters to off. I'll also scan my lights. My lights are good. Nothing to change there. Fuel, we're juicing off the center tank, so we got a little bit of gas out of the center tank. The left tank is always down a little bit because of the APU. I don't know if this airplane actually balances that out or not, or you have to do that with the cross feeds. I don't know how that works on this airplane. Airbus, it balances it all out eventually. So 26,000, looking good there, looking good there. This, again, is a new style of format. I'm really liking learning it. I don't know where everything is yet, but it gives me some pretty good information. Gives me a good schedule here. If you were to print it out, this is where you could write your ATIS. You could also go ahead and get your actual time off the ground, your actual passengers. So I'm enjoying learning this. One of the other sim pilots that regularly flies along with me over on Twitch, Captain Butters, put together a really nice decoder for this, and was very nice, and let me share it over on the Discord server. Link is in the description. Plus my basic flight notes that I have on the flight are going to be there too, along with the flight plan, so you can copy and paste that over into something like Notepad, and that's going to work for you. I usually leave my map at about 40 miles here, and that seems to be a good number. We'll go ahead and update the heading here since we're making our turn. And out we go. The top of climb indicator here, and also the top of line little arc here, or sometimes they call that the banana, That tells us when we're actually going to get to our top of climb. We've got a bit of a headwind here at about 15 knots. One of the things that I will be doing when I hit pause and stuff is as we get a little bit closer to our arrival, is I will be going over and taking a look at what the real world airport is doing. There are several ways to do this. If you're in the United States, you can do the FAA's digital ATIS and come on down here and find Chicago. Not every U.S. airport is in here, but the big ones for sure. So KORD and Information Alpha is current in Chicago. Winds are 310 at 8 degrees, 10 miles visibility. Clear skies, beautiful day in Chicago. Altimeter is 3023. Arrivals, expect vectors to 27 center, 28 center. We're expecting 27 center on the north side, so there you go. It also tells you about all of the closed taxiways and things. Pilots, as usual, should use caution for bird activity in the vicinity of the airport. Yes, we have to watch out for the birds. Usually what I will do is I will take the top line here of a digital ATIS and I will put it over in my flight notes. So here's my flight notes, and I'm going to update this. This isn't exactly what you're looking at in the description, but I will go and, because this is the old data from the flight plan that I screwed up earlier. So that's a great way to go. Another way to do this, let's say we're not in the United States. Let's say we were actually flying into Berlin. Well, one of the ways you could do is go to Flight Radar 24 or FlightAware. I use FlightAware because that's the one I signed up for first. So let's go EDDB. There's Berlin Brandenburg. Let's see what's going on in Berlin. And right now, if we zoom the map in a little bit, there's the airport, and it looks like they are taking off and landing to the northeast. So now we know what runways they're using at Berlin. We don't have to find an ATIS. This is how you can go and figure that out. And at this website, you can go to the bottom, and you can get, there is Brandenburg's current METAR. Pretty cool there too. This is also where I will go and try and figure out what flights to do. If I want to do shadow a real world flight, this is where I will go and do that. That's how I found out that United flew a 737-700, this model of airplane, into Chicago. I went to look to see what 737-700s were doing a morning run into Chicago. And so I went to FlightAware and looked, and that's how I found this one, United 2431, so I can shadow the real world flight. Now they took off a little bit earlier because I'm in the western part of the US, they're on the East Coast, so it's not exact time. But one of the things is if you're getting ready to go and learn to do your correct time for departure, which you need to do for big VATSIM events like Cross the Pond and Cross the Land, you actually have a departure time that you're expected to be ready to go. So you need to be prepared to do that for those big events. Depart on time. Otherwise, you're going to miss your departure slot. There's so many people that participate in those that they have to assign you, like in the real world, a slot in the sky. So one of the challenges that I will do is with an airplane, can I make an on-time departure? You know, with all of the little rabbit holes that you jump down to try and be ready to go. Coming up on 35,000 feet, we are almost to our top of climb. And again, what I'll do is after we get to top of climb, we'll pause the video. If something happens before 100 miles to top of descent, I'll start the video again. Otherwise, what I do is 100 miles before top of descent, that's when I'm going to start the video again. So what you should do is wait and see, as you know, after there's a little dissolve that I do between where we are now and top of descent, and you can play the video in YouTube and confirm that it really is 100 miles to top of descent, then you hit pause yourself. And when you get to 100 miles before top of descent, that's when you start the video again. And we can continue flying along together. 1,000 feet to top of climb. Everything is pretty good down here, nothing really to do. So what I'm going to do is, after I land in Chicago, I'm going to completely power down the airplane, make sure that it is empty of fuel, of passengers, and of cargo. And I'm going to save that in this airplane as a saved state. So one of the things you do in PMDG setup is, you see where it says save state and save load? What I'm going to do is zero out the airplane, turn it all off, and then I'm going to create a startup state called SPY. And that's my startup state. And it's going to be interesting to see if that zeroes out those passenger numbers. Because I don't think, in the fuel that was already preloaded, I mean, are we supposed to defuel? I'm not sure. But anyhow, I'm going to try and update my state. You can look at options. So performance, I don't really think I want to mess with that. So return, go to simulation. There's 7 pages. Services. I have failures turned off right now. Sync captain and first officer. Yes, barrel minimums. Standby barometer. Show thrust. High idle. Call outs. Call outs. Pause at top of the, no, that's not it. Let's see if there's a way to just zero it out here. Nope. Steering input, prop axis and rudder. So that's not in there. Those are not in the setup. So either I did something wrong, or that's how I saved it, or that might be something that PMDG might need to look at. And as we settle into our final cruising altitude, we go back over here to the main menu, FMC, and we are now in cruise mode. We are 372 miles from top of descent. That gives me time to hit pause, go over to the spy galley, and make spy breakfast for the morning. Probably add a little bit more coffee in the coffee pot. And if you want to do any kind of preparation, make sure that your charts are good to go and updated. So my charts are pretty much ready to go. Make sure those are good. So that's a thing to do. And then it's just sit back and enjoy the ride. If you like traveling as much as I do, even just sitting back here and looking out the window for a second, even on a cloudy day like this, is the next best thing to getting to go and do the real thing. So that's what the plan is for the moment. And see you 100 miles from top of descent. At least the coffee pot is still hot. Hey, welcome back to 757 Spy Flight. I appreciate you coming on in, thanks. Yep, coffee's still hot and tasty here. Finished a nice breakfast. Yep, actually had time to make a decent breakfast and sit back and enjoy it. And then post pictures of it to social media, so hey, it doesn't get better than that, right? We are 87 miles from top of descent right now. So time for us to start our descent preparations. And really the first thing that you ought to do if you're doing descent preps is come on over. Remember that digital ATIS that we were looking at? Let's hit refresh here, see if we got a new one. Information alpha is still current. 27 right, 27 center, 28 center. Those are our good runways. So we're going to go ahead and go for 27 center. That's continuing. I'm going to go ahead and highlight, like I usually do, the top two lines and put all of these over in my flight notes, which I've clipped into the description below, plus links to every website that I'm using these days. So there is step number one. So we've got that taken care of. Step number two, quick review of the approach coming on in. So over here on charts, we're not going back to Raleigh, Durham. We're going to clear out those charts. And now we've got the VEEC 5 arrival as we come on into Bonnet. VEEC, Boone, remember we're going to be exiting the star at Cluso and setting up for the ILS coming in here, I believe at Jumbo, so that's going to give us at Jumbo 4,000 feet at Jumbo. There is our ILS and also our, that's going to be the ILS and inbound course, so we're going to need to enter that. We're also going to need to enter the, decision height. So all of those are good. Everything is looking good here. Top of descent should be coming up. Fact is, there is our top of descent indicator. I was so busy doing food, I did not go over here and do up my keep my heading updated. So we're in pretty good shape right now. Let's go over here and let's do. We think we're coming into Jumbo at 4,000 feet. Let's just go and look at the flight plan. Make sure there's Hanny, there's Boone. Jumbo, 4,000 feet. I say, let's go ahead and make that our descent altitude and let the airplane manage that for us. So we're going to put in 4,000 feet in here right now. This is a Boeing, so you put it, if the flight management computer has control of LNAV, and if you put in a lower altitude at top of descent, the Boeing assumes the pilot means to do that, and the airplane will start descending. So Airbus wants you to actually hit a button in the newer Airbuses. The old original Airbuses, you could arm a descent, but I don't know that you could do that with those anymore. We could also go in and put our decision height in the barrel box. That's 853 feet. So barrow is set. Let's go ahead and dial 853. And you just kind of have to hold it and crank it. The other option would have been to put in a radar altimeter setting of 200 feet. So 853. 84. These are small numbers, so it's kind of hard to see. There's the number there, and there's the crank up there. So 853. There we go. That's good. The next thing we could do is we could go and put in the ILS. ILS for this is going to be 111.9. So 111.9, and make that active. There is a VOR over Chicago O'Hare, and it is, I believe, no, there isn't one. The nearest one is Chicago Heights up north, I think. So let's not do that. I usually will set in another VOR if possible. We could put in Chicago Heights. Well, no. That's just going to be too confusing. It's too far away from the airport. So we'll just go with the ILS and the GPS, and that should be fine. Inbound course, we need to set that. It's going to be 273 degrees. So 273 degrees. And that's good. So 273. And those descent preparations are now pretty much done. 73. Let's see, the altimeter in Chicago is 3023. You can preset that. So here's the knob up here, and you'll see underneath the standard barometer indicator. So we're going to go with 3023, and it turns to The number turns white, 3023. Now that's preset. There we go, 3023. All we have to hit is the standard button, and that presets our altimeter. So at the time when workload on the cockpit, you know, and we're busier, that takes care of that. That's really nice. We're indicating Mach 0.78, so we're getting fairly close there. The sound you are hearing is, yes, it is the Star Trek door chime from Captain Picard's Star Trek, and that is what I have set up as my ringtone for texts. So I texted some pictures of breakfast and people. I have like 3 friends that we do this with, and needless to say, I think they're all saying, you know, you're making us hungry. Would you effing stop? And yes, one of them actually did say, would you stop? And made liberal use of the F word on there too, because apparently this person is stuck in a meeting and is not happy. She's on the East Coast, so there you go. Okay, we are 46 miles from top of descent. We are 152 miles from Chicago O'Hare. It looks like our plan is pretty much set. Seatbelts remain on auto. Passengers are back there behaving. I guess the only thing is we have got 0.27. So we're almost done juicing off of the center tank here. So, excuse me, breakfast, sorry about that. We're going to have to turn that off. We could also go to init ref, and I usually select flaps 3 for my landing. So, flaps 30, excuse me. So right now that gives us a speed based on what the airplane thinks our weight's going to be of 131 knots. I always round it up to the nearest 5, so 135 is going to be our landing speed. Back to cruise for now, and we may need to update that. Since I was too busy having food and stuff, you know, I did not go. I was going to go and look and see if I could read anything about the 25,000 pounds of fuel that was already in the tank and how to get rid of that. So that's going to be something that I do after the live stream. I'll go and see. Yeah, maybe we could, after we get to the gate, we'll try and shut the airplane down and see if we can make it cold and dark and save that. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too far down the rabbit hole. I'll do that myself, and then if I learn something, you can check us out over on the Spy Flight. Spy Flight's over on Twitch. We like to do group flights. It's every day. It's Tuesday through Sunday, 1900 Zulu. That's 3 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. You're always welcome to come on over. If you feel like it, if you're enjoying what I'm doing here, likes on videos certainly help. Subscriptions, you know, follow, subscribe buttons over here on YouTube. That really helps too. Been doing YouTube for a little less than a year right now, and it's not monetized. So if you do like what you see and you want to be nice to me and keep supporting me doing stuff like this, I can certainly use the help. This is how, you know, after 4 layoffs in a 30-year career, this is how I'm keeping the bills paid right now. So I do have Ko-fi, or just come on over and drop a sub or something like that over on Twitch, and that would sure help. It's a little soon for me to be monetized on YouTube. Maybe in about 6 months if I'm lucky. I'm not sure. I'm still kind of learning how all of that works in the YouTube world. If you saw something that I did in the video and you know that it was wrong, or you had a question or a comment about what I was doing, I'm still new enough here on YouTube that I read every one of the comments. And if you have an idea, if there's a video you'd like me to do, you can put that in there too. I think we are all pretty much good to go here. We are 24 miles from top of descent. We can kind of go out and look outside just a little bit to give you an idea of where we are. So here's our flight path going on in. Let's hit the little triangle up there, and that shows that we are north and west of between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, so northeast of Indy right now. And we're starting to make our turn. Always think it's kind of nice to go and just have a look like this at a turn. So let's see, I see an airport over here. If we zoom in just a little bit, I can see that there is the town of, that is either Peru or Logansport. I think it's a Logansport, is that, and there's the little town of Peru. Maybe not. I think, well, maybe Logansport is down there. There's also a big lake here. What looks like maybe a shoreline. Maybe that's a beach or no, that's got to be a dam. I just cussed on live stream. Terrible. Yeah, that's a big dam down there. And let's also be a good pilot, and we're going to come over here and realign this. 303 degrees, perfect. And top of descent is even closer, 13 miles. Uh-oh, we have a caution. What did I do? Why do we have a caution? Oh, I bet I know why. It's time to turn off the center fuel tanks. Yep, that's what it was. We've run them almost dry. So now we're going to be juicing off these guys here. I guess to balance these out, so this is 8.63, that's 8.51. That's not that much fuel for a big heavy jet, but if I really wanted to jump down the rabbit hole, I think what I could do is I could do and turn on the crossfeed and turn off these fuel pumps and then turn them back on when this gets close to 8.5. I don't know that it's worth all of that if we're that far out of balance. I mean, maybe if the pilots are bored, you know, and they want to play with the buttons or something like that, then maybe. Six miles to top of descent. Let's see if the swearing has stopped. Okay. Well, the swearing has stopped. You got to be careful about when you send pictures to friends with food if they're trapped in a meeting with, you know, one of those bosses. It becomes kind of hard on them. So in my own defense, I didn't know they were trapped in a meeting, but still. And believe you me, I've had friends send me pictures of food that have been just as crazy. So, and just as really, really, really good looking too. Okay, 298 and 1 mile. And there comes, okay, so we have vertical deviation has just shown up here. We also get a vertical deviation over here. Airplane is starting the descent. And as long as these two are centered up, we're on a very, very nice descent. If all of a sudden it stops, you know, if all of a sudden we get a little bit too high, that's when you're going to throw out some speed brakes. Also, if your speed to maintain that descent rate gets into the red zone here, then you're also going to need to go out and throw some speed brakes. I use the Thrustmaster TCA Airbus throttle and side stick here, and they both work very well, even as a Boeing. Basically, because when I fly, I'm also either live streaming or doing a video. I like having the side stick off to the side and the throttles over here so that I can have live stream stuff down here. That being said, the only, except for the throttles, the only other thing that works on the Thrustmaster Airbus throttle set is the speed brakes. I can use the speed brake handle, and that works really good. The Airbus has detents in them, and it only has like 3 detents, really. And you can see we have a lot more flap settings here. So there's a lot more flap settings here, so I haven't even really bothered with this one at the moment. And our descent's pretty good, 3,400 feet per minute. So we're going down at a pretty good clip. But our speed is not increasing that dramatically, so I think we're going to be okay. I did try and go and make the fuel shutoff valves work with the Airbus controllers. Was not successful with that, but that would be a nice thing to do someday. So for flaps, over on the Airbus stick, you know, there are 12 buttons that you can assign. So one of those buttons is assigned to 2 of them. So flaps up, flaps down, and that's what I'm using over there. Landing gear, as you saw, I'm just clicking. That's all I'm doing there. So the gear lever doesn't work, but there's apparently some sort of a brake binding in there, which is how it is that if you're doing your pushback, and even though your brakes are off in the airplane, it still acts as though the brakes are on, and so it stands your airplane on the tail, and that looks really bad. Pretty decent approach here. 30,000 feet. Let's see, we're coming up on the town of North Judson. Way off out in the distance, you can see this long, it looks like a long, skinny river here. That's Kankakee, I believe. And if we look over here, you gotta look way over there, that's gonna be Joliet. So we should be coming up on, and we'll be turning out over Lake Michigan. Little on the hazy side right now, but weather in Chicago is great. Winds are 310 at 8, 10 miles visibility. It's clear, 21 degrees. That translates to about 69 degrees Fahrenheit. No, I'm not really that smart. If you look over here on my flight notes, if you look down here, these numbers here, there's my conversion chart there. So there's my cheat sheet to do conversions. I am not one of those blessed who can do that kind of math in his head. Okay, everything's good to go here. Nothing to worry about. Passing 27,000 feet. Again, 25,000 feet is my personal number that's stuck in my head about when I go and throw out seatbelts. Usually on the United domestic flights that I ride on, the pilot usually at the top of descent says, "Hi, we've started our descent. Gonna have to turn on the seatbelt sign in about another 5-10 minutes. So anybody that has to make a last-minute trip to the bathroom, all we ask is that you not all make a mad dash at the same time, because that makes the airplane tip uncomfortably for some other passengers." And so usually they do a descent. It's a flight of 30,000 feet or something, so 10 minutes or so. That kind of makes me think that 25,000 feet seems to be a universal number, but I'll bet it's determined by airline and policy. So 25,000 feet, seatbelts just went on. The 737 here does not have passenger signs, I don't think. So they do, you know, the cabin is not modeled for that. The Phoenix Airbus, the A320 from Phoenix, the cabin signs work perfectly. So if you turn on seatbelts, the cabin signs are pretty cool. Now, that being said, PMDG is saving us frame rates by not modeling things like that and having just a basic cabin like this. And I think it's a nice looking little cabin too. I think it's a nice cabin. I think that perhaps an opening, cockpit door that opens might be nice someday, but that's one of those little things that, you know, I certainly can live without, especially given the fact that my frame rates are pretty smooth. And I can take this into Chicago on a VATSIM event and nothing blinks. And that's really nice too. 22,000 feet. Next step in our process is going to be altimeters. We do have a descent checklist, so let's go ahead and run that. Pressurization, landing altitude is set to Chicago. Packs are on auto. Auto brake is going to be, I usually do auto brakes 3 on this airplane. That seems to be my nice, happy medium. Let's see, landing data, V speeds, init ref is set. Flaps 30, it's going to be 131 right now. That number could go down a little bit though, because we set that pretty early. And our approach briefing has been done. So the descent checklist is good. How do I find these? So this is a real world checklist. I have a printer in the other room that is off and collects a lot of dust. But if I'm learning a new complex airplane, I will dust it off, bring it in, hook it into the computer, and then what I'll do is go and open a web browser, and in the search bar, I will usually do something like B737 space checklist space PDF. So that's my search, and it almost always eventually gets me a PDF file of a real-world checklist that the pilots are using, and that's great. That is absolutely outstanding. And so that way I can print it. I will go and put it in a little plastic sleeve here so I can protect it, and I will use it just like the pilots. So one of the things is over the years I've collected one for a Airbus, an A319, 20, and 21. I also went and printed out a page. This is a procedure on the Airbus for doing a single engine taxi. I really do like the de Havilland Twin Otter from Aerosoft. The thing is I needed a checklist, but I couldn't find one, so I actually scratched one out on the cover of the flight manual, and that's my checklist for the Otter. And then one of my favorite airplanes is the MD-11 from Rotate over on X-Plane, and I was able to find one from Lufthansa Cargo, who unfortunately just retired their MD-11s. I always thought those were just amazing airplanes, and I really enjoy that. 18,000 feet, look at that, right on the dot. Let's hit the standard button. There we go. We are standard. It's going to mean we're a little bit high, but we'll catch up. It wasn't much. Speed is perfect. About 270 coming on in. There's Jumbo right over there. And it looks like it's going to get us down fairly easy going here. Just where we want to be. Okay, coming up over a small town called Crown Point. After Crown Point, so there's Cluzo. After Cluzo, basically we're going to want to turn to a heading of 360. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the map down to the 40-mile range, and I'm going to preset my heading bug to 360, directly north. And that's going to be our heading right after we go past Cluzo. So that's in 20 miles. And all we'll do is just hit the heading select button. That should disengage LNAV. VNAV should still be active for us. If you're like me and you know, in any amount of flying time, you kind of get comfortable in your chair and stuff like that, as you get a little bit closer, now is a good time to go and just make sure that your chair's set up so you can grab your rudder pedal, you can put your feet on the rudder pedals, you can get your throttles. Another thing to look at doing is my throttles have been moving around on this airplane. So Airbus, it's simple. You just leave your throttles at CL and that's it. And so when you're ready to disconnect throttles, you just move them from where they are. For Boeing, this is a little bit different. So right now my throttles are where I left them on takeoff, which is basically the flex takeoff setting on an Airbus. So watch, I'm now physically moving my throttles back. There's CL, and now I'm moving them down almost to a little above idle. I'm still keeping them together. You notice my throttles in the airplane did not move. I'm presetting my throttles to a little bit above idle because I'm going to take over control from the auto throttle on approach, and so that gets my throttles a little bit closer to where I think that they would be. And there's Hanny. We are going to Cluzo next, and then we will go, that's it, 11 miles to Cluzo, and then we'll hit the heading hold button. And as we continue to come in, we're coming up on a town called, so let's see, there's Gary, Indiana there. Calumet City. See, that was where, isn't that where Joliet Jake and Elwood Blues used to hang out in Calumet City? I seem to remember that there. So there's the downtown Chicago area. There's Navy Pier there. Chicago is a fun airport town. It's always been one of my favorite airport towns. If you look up in some of the videos that I did, there was a flight that United 727 took from O'Hare over to Meigs Field. Yes, Meigs Field, back in the day. And they were delivering the airplane to Meigs to put on a barge to take it down to the Museum of Science and Industry. I actually tried to do that flight. It wasn't too terribly bad. It was, you know, my typical landing. Not great, not terrible, but, you know. We're coming up on 10,000 feet. The airplane's going to start slowing itself down here at 10,000 feet. We'll also do landing lights. Let's also do the nose light. And let's also let the cabin crew know we are serious about doing that landing thing. So seats for landing essentially is what we've done. And our speed is slowly working its way down to 10,000 feet. Now at this point, I will generally start to think about taking control of my speed. If you're on VATSIM, chances are, if it's a crowded day in the neighborhood, they're going to be telling you, hey, slow down and speed up and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and hit vertical speed, and I'm going to roll this down to 240. So there's 240. It's actually going to speed us up to 240. We're 20 miles away. And our descent rate is 250. Let's keep going down. Let's go to 1,000 feet per minute and see what happens with the banana bar there. Okay, we're going to be a little bit high, but not bad. There's 240. I'm going to go with 210. Now at this point in time, we can also throw out a notch of flaps here. So I'm hitting that one button for my flaps, so down one click. And there goes leading edge slats. There we go. And speed's going to go down just a little bit. And I'm going to go and continue hitting flap buttons till we get to flaps 5. Speed's coming down even more. Might need about 1,200 feet per minute as we continue to slow down. There we go. That's looking pretty good. That's a nice little balance between descent and speed. Let's see. We've already passed Cluzo, so we should have gone heading hold. And do a little bit of a turn to the right there. Let's also go ahead and bring the map in a click. There we go. That looks good too. And we'll go right up the Chicago coast. There's the downtown area. There's Navy Pier. And as we look over here, there is a very, very big park that you can see here. And at the end of the park, this area here, that's the Museum of Science and Industry. So there's Meigs Field. Meigs Field was up here. There's the museum. So when they landed the 727, now they stored the 727 for a little bit of time so that they could prepare stuff. But basically the barge trip, it eventually ended up going down to the museum, where it is now hanging from the second floor. You can crawl, you can go inside the cabin. They've done some amazing cutaways. If you ever get to Chicago and you're an airplane geek like I am, it is absolutely, absolutely worth your time. We are at 210 knots. The airplane says I could go to flaps 10 now. I'm picking up localizer. So I'm going to go and test the theory out. It says flaps 10 here. So flaps 10. And that's going to go down. Let's see if it goes down to 210. Well, it didn't beep at me, but boy, we're at the top end of that, aren't we? Okay, coming up here, we're going to be, there's Jumbo, so we're going to get ready to make our turn in just a second. At this point in time, usually they're telling me to go to 180. And then keep my speed up to 180. And at that point in time, they'll usually slow us down and tell us we're cleared for the ILS, and then tell me that 180 knots to Yvonne right here. So it's 180 there, and then there's the slow down. Maybe it's going to be 180 at Driscoll. I think that's more like 5 miles. So maybe it's 180 at Driscoll is what they would do. And at 180, let's see, I can do flaps 15, 195. So I can go to flaps 15 now. That's good. I don't think I need any more speed brakes, so we're going to arm our speed brakes. And I'm going a little fast, so it's yelling at me about speed. Very upset airplane. Let's reduce our rate of descent to 750. We don't need to be going down that fast. There's MiGs. There's Navy Pier. There's the wheel. There's the John Hancock building. Keep a close eye. You might see Triss ziplining down to Dauntless headquarters. And that's your Chicago movie reference for the day. Okay, it's still upset with me about that flaps 15, so we'll put that away. I'm going to start my turn in. Okay, it's clearly not upset with me about flaps. No, it's not that. What don't you like, airplane? Coming up on 4,000. It didn't do my heading select. It didn't do my heading select. Unhappy airplane. Clearly I missed a button there. So we'll be above 4,000 feet. This is good. I do have glide slope and localizer showing up now. So that's good news. We'll continue to roll it around here. And that looks very nice. Nicely established on that. So let's go over here and I'm going to hit the approach button. These buttons are not instant gratification buttons. So you hit the buttons on this airplane, hit the heading select, and it takes a second before it actually kicks into gear. So don't keep hitting it. It'll fool you like that. And I assume that that's the way the real autopilot works. You hit the button and it has to think about it for a second. Excuse me, allergies are still pretty bad here. Okay, there's 4,000 feet. Glide slope is going to start to move in just a bit. And we should see localizer in just a second too. Speed's good, 180 as we start to become feet dry. And an incredible view out the window. I've never had this view, but if I ever get to travel again and stuff, I get to go to Chicago. Love to see this. Always like to say that I think that Chicago would be a great place to be to base the Spy Flight live streaming cockpit. In other words, I'm kind of thinking I want to move soon. Chicago's kind of at the top of the list. Really good pizza, lots of cool aviation. It would be a little cold in the wintertime. I understand that the wind whistling off of Lake Michigan's a little on the chilly side, but okay, I'll deal with that. Okay, here comes localizer. Make sure that the airplane grabs the turn. And we're gonna go and do 180 to Driscoll. I think Yvonne is not. They would tell us 180 knots to Driscoll. And we are 10 miles from the runway. One last click on my map. And are we starting the turn? Are we starting the turn? There we go. There's a turn. Nice little turn over there. And a great view again. All right. Reset. 27. That's going to be 272. That's going to be our heading if we have to go missed approach. At this point in time, we're very nicely established. I'm going to go and switch my map over. And so here is Chicago, and I'm going to put it over here so I can see my runway and the taxiways. I've got flight following on there, so that's all set and perfect good. Perfect to go there too. It's 4 miles to Driscoll, so that's going to be our slowdown. Remind us of our landing speed. It says 131. I'm going to keep it at 135. Actually, it says 130 now. So 130 is our speed. Sit back a little bit, gently put your feet on the rudder pedals, Again, make sure that you can grab your stick and throttle. We've got just a little bit more pointing and clicking to do, and then after that, it's going to be all about flying the airplane. So the placarded speed said I could go to flaps 15 at 195 knots. These are different, so that's probably why it is that I was getting yelled at about my airspeed. A mile to the slowdown. I got the airport, I got the runway. There is the north side of the Kennedy Expressway, which takes you on out to O'Hare. I think the trains, the Amtraks that go out of Chicago, follow the Kennedy too. Okay, it is Driscoll's, so 135 for our airspeed. So 135, landing gear going down. There goes wheels. Always cool to look at the wheels. We pre-armed the nose lights, so it went in there too. Keep an eye on the speed. How about a notch of flaps? See if it yells at me this time. No, it didn't. So there's flaps 15. Still letting the autopilot do the work. Eventually, I want to get to the point where I do more of it myself, but remember, you're a pilot all by yourself, and nobody's here to work the radios, so if you got to do VATSIM and everything, it just kind of keeps you a little less busy. One more click at my flaps. Landing checklist. Engine start selectors go to continuous. Engine start selectors are continuous. Speed brake is armed. Sometimes I'm not sure. Speed brake is armed. Landing gear is down. Flaps are good with the green light. We're all ready to go. Look up. AP is off. Click it a second time. It silences the alarm. Hands on the throttles. Again, my left throttle, my right throttle, is my auto throttle cutoff so that I can just move them myself. Although generally I don't do that because airplanes don't respond.
200. Minimums.
Landing. Auto throttle's off.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Tap the brakes, auto throttles are off, and we are off at Echo 2. Manual braking. Speed brakes down, flaps going up. Slow down since we already briefed our approach in here. Our taxi, we know that we're going to go and continue here to Romeo. I'm going to reach up here. APU is starting. And we'll come over here. Strobe's off the runway. Now that we're off the runway. Romeo is coming up here. This is a payware airport. So the taxi signs are all going to be very, really accurate, which is nice. So Romeo, we're going to cross runway 27. See, we can also turn off traffic. Make the turn. Coming over here. Go to transponder. Might need just a little bit of juice here to get around. Let's see, we're going to be on the north side. So we're going to say that we've got a really nice ground controller, and they're going to put us on Golf to Alpha, because we're going to gate 29, Charlie 29. So they're going to be really nice and save us a big old loop-de-loop. Here's runway 27 left. Look over there. Anybody on approach or taking off? Nope. Good. We're safe. Add maybe a little more power here. Well, not too much, because after we cross the runway, we're making a 90-degree left turn. APU is coming up. Everything else is good to go up here. We've already got that set, so we're actually caught up. Okay, there's our 90-degree turn. This is the Gulf taxiway. It even says Gulf. Imagine that. And start a turn. Probably a little fast on the turn, but we've got a little bit of room to swing it wide. Yeah, 12 knots of taxi. We should have been 10 knots or less for a 90-degree turn. Okay, and so we're coming on in over here. There we are. So we're going to go over here to this spot here and make the turn in. After that, 29 is inside just beyond 31. Oh yes, the gate numbers should be correct. See, I think 22 right. I don't know if that's still open or not. I think some of these have been closed. They're reconfiguring some of the runways. This should be a really good fit for our airplane, because the real world airplane went into this gate too. So thanks to our controller. So 31 is at the end, 29 is going to be slightly off the side. Real O'Hare, they have a few commuters down here, and at this end, this is where they put the very big jets. So the 777s, the 787s. If you're going to go to Frankfurt from here, I think you depart over there, but you arrive over on at the international terminal. And there we are. There's our gate. So the one that's just right parallel with us, right off the wingtip, that's 30. 29 is the one that's next to it. So there's 30. There's 29. I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to be really embarrassed. Say Charlie 29. Charlie 29 West. Oh, so they would put somebody else over here. Let's go get the regular 29. I didn't think they'd have a West one. So ground just gave us a fast turn. There's Charlie 29 over there. Well, I thought I was being clever. But some gates have different ones. So there's the West, so we'll turn it around over here. One thing that is missing from Microsoft Flight Simulator is what I call gate guidance. And that is, letting you know how far to get to your gate. There are a couple of airports that have it, but hardly any. So you get yourself centered up, and then you kind of look over here. That's probably good. So parking brakes. Look up here. We're going to turn on the generators to the APU. Should have turned those off when we got off the runway. And engines. So there goes our engines. We'll come up here and we're going to turn the nose light off. Let's turn off the anti-collision lights. We're going to we should have turned off the probe heat so that those can start cooling down. We don't want anybody to get burned off the probe heaters. And everything's good up there. Coming on down over here, we would also go to standby on the transponder. And then we can come over here and go to menu And FS actions, we'll go to ground services, and we're going to go and put chocks into place. After that, we can request ground power. And after that, after ground power is connected, I think maybe that's going to give us a jetway. We can also turn on, now that chocks are in place, you can turn off the parking brakes. And so now that we have ground power, we're going to pop that in. Ground power is in. So we'll leave the APU on for ventilation. And we can now request a jetway. And there is the jetway right there. I hope I didn't just get rid of it. Yeah, sometimes I think that the jetway is connected somehow to ground power. So I requested it, but once you engage ground power, your jetway comes out. So let's go back here and re-request the jetway. While that's going on, we can come over here and we're going to go to the cargo page, and I'm going to put in 0. Into cargo and 0 into rear cargo. And I'm going to request loaders and carts. Come back over here. I bet we have a jetway now. So let's go to doors and we'll open the L1. Did we do seatbelts already? Oh, we didn't do seatbelts. Passengers are very irritated at us. In fact, the forward entry is now open. So seatbelts are off. Passengers are getting up. So the L1 comes in there. Cargo doors, we don't have to worry about cargo doors at the moment. Let's go back to ground services. And we're going to go and find the passenger page. Nope, that's not it. And there's passengers. So put in a 0 at passengers. And start. And now the passengers are going to get off. Let's go to the next page. And we have loaders showing up. So loaders are showing up and carts are showing up. And then after that, we'll be able to go and unload. And so you got to wait, though, until the forward carts arrive, and then you can start the unloading process. And that's how that works. The only other rabbit hole that you could jump down right now is take a look at your fuel. It says 16.0 over on the flight plan. The flight plan said that I should have final reserve and alternate fuel was 5.9. Now, I did have much more fuel. I had 25,000 pounds of fuel in there instead of 17. So that's what threw that off. But generally, I found on this airplane, that number is spot on. Just spot on, and that's great. So passengers are getting off the airplane. Look at that. Our jetway's already there. Look out over here. You can see, oh, look at that. You can see the cart coming up. You know, who would have thought it would be great to see a little, a baggage cart go driving up like this, right? And there you go. Our airplane is doing perfectly. Let's go and look back down here. So we can start unloading cargo. So now they're unloading the cargo in the front end. And so in just a second, we'll be able to start unloading cargo in the back. What I'm going to do for testing is I'm going to go through the power down procedure on this airplane, turn it all off, and I'm going to try and save it with 0 cargo. And I'm also going to 0 out the fuel eventually because there seems to be a little bit left over in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and try and figure that out. And then it's time for me to go and start getting ready for next week's spy flights. I know one of the spy flights that we're going to be doing is going to be a Concorde flight from Heathrow to Washington Dulles. I think that's Wednesday. So we fly every day at 1900 Zula, and I hope you'll join us. Again, thank you for watching. This is never about the right way or the wrong way. This is what works for me, and I hope that these are things that works for you. Please leave a question, comments. I'm new on YouTube. I read all the questions and the comments and respond, and might even be a new video or something, so I certainly appreciate that. I'm new on YouTube, so liking videos and subscribing, those really help, and thank you for helping me grow here on YouTube. I'm a long way away from being monetized. If you really like what I'm doing here and you want to help me out, I do have a page on Ko-fi, or you could come over to Twitch and drop a sub or two. You can also hit a donate page there, and that's how it is that I can keep the bills paid here at Spy HQ. This is an amazing airport. This is a pay-where airport. You can go and you can walk through the terminal. If you haven't been through Chicago O'Hare in a long time like I haven't, it's kind of a good time to go and do that, so I would suggest doing that. I will look forward to seeing you again here on YouTube real soon, and even sooner over on Twitch. As I always like to say over on Twitch, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.